Call the January 6, 2021 Inland Wetlands Commission meeting for the town of Farmington to order. First item on the agenda, well, actually, I guess it's called the meeting to order, which I did. Public hearing, 402 Farmington Avenue, LLC. Before we actually have the applicant go ahead and get started, Shannon, do you want to let everybody know in case there's a question about the paperwork that was submitted late today?
I will. I'd like to do a roll call, a formal roll call first, Bob, if that's okay.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you. Rich Berlandi.
Here.
Thank you. Emily Brick.
I am here.
Thank you. Dave Fox is not here. Bob Hannon.
I'm here.
Robert Eisner.
Here.
Mark Simpson.
I'm here.
Ned Stachin.
Here.
Jay Tulin. Oh gosh. All right.
He's
and
here.
Jay is here. So Jay is going to be using the chat feature. He's on and his audio is not working. Or his voice. He can hear us, but we can't hear him. Guy Wolf. Yeah, Guy, you've got to unmute yourself. Please.
I'm here.
Thank you. Okay. So we have Dave Fox absent this evening and both alternates. So Bob, when you, at your discretion, you can assign an alternate to vote for this evening as required.
Well, everybody can participate anyway. It's more for the voting, isn't it?
It's just for the voting, correct. Everyone can participate, correct. So commission members is being directed to you. I, after 5 o'clock this afternoon, received an email from an attorney indicating that he is representing one of the neighbors to 402, the application for 402 Farmington Avenue, and is indicating their intent to file intervenor status, which would grant them legal standings in this public hearing. It has not yet been filed in the clerk's office, and it was filed after business hours. All of their representatives are on the phone this evening, so I'm sure we will hear from them during the public hearing portion. At this point, I would recommend that we commence with the public hearing and hear from the applicant, and then we will proceed with comments. And I will consult with our town attorney tomorrow regarding processing of this, and assuming that it is filed in the clerk's office and proceeds as a formal intervenor status. So. But wanted to make everyone aware of the paperwork that's been received, and we can expect a notable public comment this evening for this first matter. So, Bob, you have anything you want to add on that?
No, I'm just, again, what's sort of going through my mind is the hearing was scheduled for today to go forward. I mean, I did not, in all honesty, anticipate going beyond this evening. That's why it would have been good to have had this paperwork filed well in advance. We could have, if we had the information in advance, we could have gone ahead and, you know, made a decision on the request to intervene. But at this point in time, I mean, I'm not about to start looking at some experts' CV and documentation that supports some of their contentions regarding the vernal pool. So I'm just a little upset that it came in as late as it did. And as you said, had you not been in the office looking at other stuff, we never would have known about it in the first place.
Right.
But having said that, I guess we will go ahead and let the applicant start their presentation.
And I do, just before they get started, there's some questions popping up on the chat. So everyone understands from the public standpoint, I can see you fall under, as I have control of this, I can see who has signed in. Anyone from the public does not have permission to speak until the public hearing starts, and you will be called on at that time. So no, I can't hear you, and that is by design, so we can keep order to this meeting. So the applicant will start. The commission will then ask questions. We will cycle through them just in the same fashion that I did for roll call. And then the applicant will respond to commission questions, and then we will open it up to the public comment in favor and in opposition of this application, and at which point you will raise your hand using the chat feature within Zoom, and you will be called on, and we will ensure that everyone that wants to speak will be allowed to speak through this, through the Zoom function. So just to kind of clear that up so that we can get started. So you will have an opportunity, but it will go in our typical orderly manner that we hold our public hearings. So it will be after the presentation of the applicant and after the commission asks questions. Oh, and Sandy has Dave Fox, can you chime in and confirm your attendance, please?
Yes, I finally have figured out how to get in here. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, you got a little bit of feedback, Dave, but we got you. Thank you. Okay. With that, we will turn it over to the applicant for forward.
I'm sorry, can we read the call?
Oh, sorry. I got to read in the legal notice. Can I use? Oh, okay. Legal notice for the public hearing. Town of Farmington Inland Wetlands Commission notice is hereby given that the Inland Wetlands Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, January 6, 2021 at 7 p.m. via online web conference on the following application. 402 Farmington Avenue LLC application for regulated activity with an upland review area consisting of proposed driveway, parking lot, garage building, associated grading, clearing, and stormwater management basins associated with multifamily development of lots 40 and 40B1 Farmington Avenue, otherwise known as H231 and 9249 Farmington Avenue, and located behind 406 Farmington Avenue. At this hearing, interested persons may be heard. A copy of this proposal is online at https://www.farmington-ct.org ///conservation-inland-wetlands-commission, or please call the planning department at Farmington Town Hall at 860-675-2325. Dated at Farmington, Connecticut, the 16th day of December 2020, Inland Wetlands Commission, Robert Hannon, Chairman. Okay, now we can start. Mr. Richards, it's all yours.
This is Tim Hollister. I will lead the presentation.
Oh, certainly. Sorry, Tim, didn't realize. Thank you.
That's okay. Mr. Chairman, Shannon, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good evening. I'm attorney Tim Hollister. My office is in Hartford, and I'm representing the applicant. I have it on good authority that one can say Happy New Year all the way to January 31st. So Happy New Year to you all. My experts with me are Tom Daly and Megan Raymond from Malone and McBroom. And after some introductory remarks, I will have them go through their presentations. I want to take a moment on procedural compliance. The abutter mailing was completed, and my understanding is that proof of that was provided to Ms. Rutherford. The sign was posted, and a proof of that also provided to Ms. Rutherford and her office. Notices were published correctly and in the correct places, and as far as I can tell, we are in compliance with Governor's Orders 7B and 7I. And I think the applicant team would certainly like to thank the town staff, Mr. Sear and Ms. Rutherford, for getting us to this point. Of course, the commission has seen this application and plan on 2 prior occasions, but now because it's a public hearing, we need to do it again, and we need to do it actually in a little more detail. So we ask your patience for hearing it with the 3rd time. I will point out right at the beginning that this overall development here is much needed apartments for the healthcare community in the town of Farmington. That's what we're trying to support here with the application. During the spring and summer of 2020, the applicant went through a very extensive set of hearings with the Planning and Zoning Commission, which generally endorsed the proposed use in this location, subject to the details, and this wetlands application is part 1 of that detailed plan. But of course, the focus tonight is just on regulated activities. And the key point we want to state up front, and we hope to document, is that there is no proposed disturbance of any wetland soil or watercourse. All of the proposed work that is within your purview is within a non-wetland upland review area with all appropriate measures taken to manage stormwater, prevent erosion, and make sure that there is no adverse impact on any function of a wetland or watercourse. That's our goal tonight. So the commissioners should have the plan set as revised to November 24th, 2020. The application, by the way, was filed November 2nd. So we too were hoping to expedite and get through the process tonight, but we'll see what happens. There was a wetlands assessment report given to you also online, a drainage report. And tonight, Mr. Daly and Ms. Raymond have several illustrative slides, which I believe Shannon is in control of, which we will use to illustrate the work and the proposal. I do want to mention that since the application was filed, and I believe this is something that's going to happen in the next couple of days, the applicant has agreed to donate, free of charge, donate 4.6 acres on the, I believe it's the west end of the property, to the Farmington Land Trust, which is a very significant matter because it allows the land trust to connect both physically and, in my understanding, hydraulically, to adjacent pieces of land, open space that the land trust owns. So this is not just a sort of a throwaway. This is a concrete way to give the land trust a control over a expanded and contiguous piece of open space. And that, of course, is one of the keys to the functionality of open space, is connectivity and continuity. So with that, let me turn it over to Mr. Daly and and Ms. Raymond. And Mr. Chairman, I do have some thoughts and suggestions about how we handle the intervention petition, but I think we can address that later on in the evening. So Tom Daly and Megan, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Once for the record, Tom Daly with Mylone and McBroom. What we'd like to do is start off with the existing conditions. As Shannon indicated, this land is essentially to the rear of Farmington Ave. This plan in front of you is what's in your plan set, except we've gone ahead and highlighted some important things for this commission. So on this plan, you can see the blue line represents the wetlands. Embedded in the wetlands on the left-hand side of the plan is a smaller blue line. That's the vernal pool that Megan Raymond has spoken to and will speak to later on. Also for indication, we've showed a 100-foot offset off of the vernal pool for your information. And then the red line is showing your upland review area. So the subject part, it's really two parcels. It's accessed off of what we call as Quarry Road. So if you're coming along Farmington Ave, there's a traffic light that goes into the Yukon, I guess, genome facility. You would pull into there and then a quick left into Quarry Road. Quarry Road, the first, say 50 feet is gravel. And after that, it's actually paved all the way up into this site you can see on this plan. That was installed as part of an application many years ago. They extended utilities and Quarry Road over the wetlands and over the gas easement line. Underneath Quarry Road, connecting the two wetland areas, are 3 24-inch pipes. The subject parcel, the two parcels add up to just a little under 17 acres. But really the subject of the application before this commission is really generally focused on 9 acres as shown on this plan. On this plan, north is pointing to the right, kind of upright. And we have topography that slopes basically west to east. The highest portion of the site is at the northwest corner, which is about elevation 410. And it slopes all the way down to the gas easement and then ultimately to the wetlands, which is about elevation 364. As I indicated, there is actually a gas easement that runs through the site. It runs from a south to north. Well, I guess gas goes both directions, but it's running south to north kind of through the property. The subject property is primarily wooded except for the gas easement, as Shannon is indicating, and then where Quarry Road crosses the wetland corridor. The wetlands that are closest to our property is where Shannon has her hand. I would note that the vast majority of those wetlands are actually not on our property. Our property line is located just to the west of that. The majority of the wetlands are located on the Yukon or state of Connecticut property. There is a small portion of the property, wetland, about 4,200 square feet, which is located on our property and north of the Quarry Road crossing. The flow of this wetland goes from a south to north direction. So after Quarry Road, it goes to the 3 24-inch pipes. It goes into a very broad wetland, broad and very flat to the point where the flow is somewhat difficult to really understand, but it does flow to the north. Ultimately, at the northern end of the Yukon or the stem cell property or geome property, there's a large concrete outlet structure. The wetlands enter that. It then goes into a pipe, and then it's a roadside ditch along the condominiums. Ultimately, it enters a pipe system, heads off to the west, heads off to the east, which ultimately goes towards the Yukon Health Center campus. Next slide, Shannon. And this is just the same exact plan that we just showed you, but we brought in the aerial photo below it to give you some better perspective. But I think the topo survey does a nice job on that. So Shannon, next slide. So here is the proposal that we have before you this evening. As I think the record read, it's a single multifamily building with 146 units. We have 221 parking spaces, and of those parking spaces, 32 are located in detached garages, and then 52 are actually internal to the building. So they have garage doors, and actually they're under the building itself. So, one thing I would note of this plan is garage F has been relocated. That was some comments that the commission made at our previous application, that they had some interest in moving garage F out of the upland review area. And you can see from this plan, we've shifted those to the north and met that standard where we're out of that now. As the project goes, the vast majority of the project is located out of the upland review area. We actually have only a very small impervious area that's located in the upland review area. It's that small parking area there that totals about 6,500 square feet. And then also we are paving the end. So we pick up where Quarry Road ends and then goes up the hill. So we're about 4,600 square feet. So a pretty small area in considering we're talking about 10 acres of site. The primary activity that we're looking at are really 2 stormwater basins that are located in the Upland Revere area. They are located on the opposite side of the gas easement. And one of the things that will come up later and Megan will speak to is we've provided some distances from the closest point to the vernal pool to our activities. We have about 243 feet from the closest edge of pavement to the vernal pool. We're about 336 feet from the building to the vernal pool and about 240 feet across Quarry Road to the vernal pool. Next slide, Shannon. And once again, this is just an aerial overview just to give you a little more context of the site. Next slide. You know, an important part of this project is the stormwater system. We really almost have, we're dealing with stormwater in 2 ways. One, there is a very large watershed that flows from west to east towards the wetlands. It kind of comes through the property. It's an off-site watershed that we are managing. And because it's essentially coming from off-site sources and not through the project, we did not want to route that through our stormwater water quality chambers and basins. So we have created a two drainage systems that pick up that water on the perimeter of our site and route it around our project. So there's one project there. So all that water that's coming off the site will get routed around, and then ultimately it does meet up with our outflow of our detention basin, but then it discharges to the wetland. And then on the north side, Shannon, there's just keep moving by the maintenance building.
Sorry, come down here. Here? Sorry.
Yeah, right there. We have one run there where we have a swale at the top of the slope, and that water will get picked up. And once again, it does not get routed through the detention basin. It gets taken right to the wetland. And that's an attempt to continue to match watersheds. But for the water that we are picking up on the site, we are routing those to 2 stormwater basins. Both discharge. We had to very critically locate those pipes based upon crossing the gas easement. And we do have stormwater chambers or hydrodynamic separators located on both of those pipes before they go into the detention basins. In addition to that, those detention basins are designed for both water quality and quantity. So we have analyzed the basins for the 2 through the 100-year storm event and showing that we have no net increase in runoff for those storm events. In addition to that, the hydrodynamic separators have been designed for the 80% removal, and the bottoms of the basins have provided for water quality retention. One other item I would bring to the commission's attention, we talked about it the last time. We did have 2 catch basins in Quarry Road that were not being routed through the water quality chamber. These revised plans, we've added a sediment chamber. It's a dual catch basin sediment chamber that will be located right on the edge of pavement. And now those catch basins are being routed through their own individual water quality chamber before discharging. Next slide, Shannon. And as part of this plan, we have developed an erosion control plan that we believe, we are confident that it meets the stormwater standards. One of the things we want to do is kind of route that clean water around the site so it's not going through the construction site. In addition to that is we anticipate that we will be using one of the stormwater basins for a sediment trap. But what we're going to do is we're not going to excavate to the bottom grade. So we'll use it during construction, let it get, if it happens to be silted up, that's okay. It does not impact the overall functionality of that basin at a later date. So once the project is fully stabilized, then we'll go and actually excavate the basin to its final elevation, and it'll be, really, it'll be planted up as a final permanent control on that. This project will, it's over 5 acres of disturbance, so this project will require a stormwater general permit. Next slide, Shannon. As part of this, we have worked with CR3 Landscape Architects to develop a landscaping plan. Megan Raymond was also a part of this in terms of selecting plants. And what I'd like to do is focus on the area of the gas easement and the detention basins. We're proposing a natives wetland and conservation seed mix in the basins. In addition to that, we are along the new clearing limit, which is not at the wetland, but actually at our property line. As I indicated, the wetlands are actually off our property. We've come up with a native planting scheme to kind of buffer that new clearing limit, and that will be made up of both native shrubs and trees that'll be able to restore that edge. And as I said, Megan was able to help select some appropriate plantings on that. Next slide. As Tim indicated in the early part of the in the introduction of this application, the applicant is now committed to deeding. It's about 4.6 acres of open space. What you can't see is on plan left is land already owned by the land trust. So this 4.6 acres will actually be directly abutting their property. So that's currently a wooded parcel, and actually I have a Mylar sitting right here next to me, which we'll be delivering to Metro Realty tomorrow for filing on the land records for that dedication of land. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Megan Raymond. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much, Tom. For the record, my name is Megan Raymond. I'm a professional wetland scientist and registered soil scientist with Mylone and McBroom. I've been involved with the project since the wetland delineation, which occurred in the spring of 2020. The wetlands on this property were previously delineated in January of 2017 by Eric Davison. And so what I completed in this spring was to evaluate his delineated line, verify those boundaries, as well as augment a portion of the wetland that wasn't delineated north of Quarry Road. So what we're looking at is a wetland complex that runs along the topographic low of these parcels. This system originates in a shrub swamp that exists off-site to the south, and occupies a low gradient flowing when there is flow in a northerly direction, northeasterly direction. This wetland is a palustrine wetland comprised of 3 primary, well, the offsite portion is shrub, but on the property itself, there are 2 primary wetland classes in existence. One is an emergent wetland, which is primarily those areas that are bounded in blue. That's an emergent wetland vegetation that surrounds an open water, seasonally open water area. And as well, we have a portion of a red maple swamp that exists just south of, in the southern portion of the wetland, sort of broader area as the wetland bows out along the south. Because this wetland exists along a corridor, in addition to the gas easement, there's also an electric, a telephone electrical corridor that runs through this area. So there's been quite a bit of disturbance within the wetland boundary itself. And what that has resulted in is the existence or the creation of 2 large trough areas, large in relative terms relative to the overall wetland area. The acreage of the wetland on the property, on these properties, is I believe it's 1.98 acres, so about 11% of the collective land area between these 2 parcels. Obviously, the 4.5 acre piece does not have any wetlands on it, and all the wetlands are confined to the larger 14 and some odd acre piece. But these troughs exist within the wetland boundary, excavated features that contain standing water seasonally. And again, back to the original wetland delineations, these portions of the site were identified as potential vernal pools. And so we did, in the 2020 spring delineation assessment, also complete a vernal pool assessment to evaluate the composition of these areas as it relates to seasonal breeding for wetland obligate amphibians. The presence of wood frog egg masses were identified in both of the blue shaded areas on the scene, on the site. They are relatively low numbers, approximately 18 egg masses in one area and 12 egg masses in another. In addition to those amphibians, there were some facultative invertebrates, fingernail clams, and caddisfly larvae. So overall, we're looking at a wetland system that is comprised of a variety of vegetation. Within the emergent wetland itself, there's a variety of reed canary grass, sensitive fern, some scattered soft rush, as well as punctuated by some woody shrubs, multiflora rose. It's sort of a snarled entanglement of non-native species as well, given the disturbance along the corridor. As we move north along Quarry Road, we have these three 24-inch diameter concrete pipes that do provide some hydrologic conveyance, but they're not directly aligned with the depressional areas. Rather, they exist just to the west and at a topographic elevation slightly higher, about a foot or a foot and a half higher than the water surface elevation in this location. So it's not as though these culvert features actively drain these excavated areas. Rather, these excavated areas sit adjacent and lower than the culverts themselves. As we move north of Quarry Road, similarly, the wetland is a mixed class feature. Not any standing water in this portion of the wetland. Rather, it's comprised of a large patch of common reed within the central portion, and then along the periphery we see some wooded hardwood areas. Within the upland portion of the site, it's generally forested with the exception of the disturbed areas. To the south, there are some bedrock outcrops and some punctuating eastern red cedars, but primarily deciduous hardwood trees within the majority of the upland features on the site. Some scattered stone walls and other relic features of past disturbance do exist within the ground surface. When we're looking at, I think, Shannon, this is a great overview, but I think we can flip to the proposed condition. Actually, maybe, well, yeah, I think that would be a good one to start with here. When we're laying out this site development, we did pay special attention to the types of wetlands and the wetland functionality that are present on the property in order to maintain these physical characteristics of the wetland systems. In looking at the landscape position of the special wetland features, which would be considered these vernal pool or wood frog breeding areas, in concert with the overall site layout, we feel confident that the site as developed, as proposed, will not impair or impede any further productivity of this site as it relates to wetland obligate amphibian breeding. The areas that is proposed, or the work that's proposed, is located a good distance to the north of the wetland features, and primarily what we're looking at is to protect the adjacent wetlands through management of long-term considerations through stormwater management and short-term considerations with sedimentation and erosion control. The sediment erosion control basins are going to be located east of the gas easement, and though this area will be initially disturbed, with the creation of the basins will allow to be revegetated, and the natural buffer will be reestablished between those two areas. And as Tom mentioned, the basins will provide water quality volume, but they're not going to be permanently wet. They'll be periodically wet, but not permanently. The bottoms of the basin are a minimum of 6 feet above the wetland in this location. I think that an important point that Tom laid out really nicely was just the maintenance of the overall hydrology of this of this wetland system by capturing the watershed as it enters the site with the pipe routing and draining back to the wetland as it exists. We'll be able to maintain the existing hydrologic patterns. I'd also like to note that all of the proposed activities are located down gradient of the special wetland features. So we're not having any active drainage of the proposed project towards these special wetlands that exist to the south of the proposal. Additionally, sedimentation and erosion control are really important to manage during construction just to minimize potential for turbidity impacts. And that's been laid out nicely with the temporary sediment traps, as well as the construction sequencing throughout the disturbance area. And obviously this will be further vetted through the stormwater general permit process. And further refined as necessary, but we feel confident that the plan as proposed will have no impact or effect on these wetland features. As it relates specifically to the vernal pools, we did take a look at the 100-foot, obviously, as Tim mentioned in his introduction, no direct wetland disturbance is proposed with this project. So what we're looking at is upland review area activity. It's approximately 2 acres of upland review area activity, 2.3, I believe, but the overall impervious, the majority of this work is taking place with the creation of the basin. So the overall new impervious within the upland review is quite small. I think it's about 0.2. It's the 6,500 square feet that Tom mentioned, and there's a slight addition well, actually we've reduced some with the movement of the garage, but we're looking at approximately 6,500 square feet of new impervious within the upland review. The tree clearing within the upland review is about 1.5 acres, and that's going to be centric to the basin area. The work along Quarry Road is already cleared and disturbed. You can see the tree line along the Quarry Road area there. And because these troughs, these troughs that provide the wood frog habitat exist within the wetland boundary, we already have a natural buffer of the wetland itself to provide additional protection to these areas, but as well there'll be obviously no impact to the vernal pool depression, and the vernal pool envelope will remain largely intact with the exception of a smidge of grading associated with the existing Quarry Road extension in that location. So again, in evaluating the project and ensuring compliance and consistency with the town of Farmington regulations, we evaluated the existing wetland characteristics, the existing physical characteristics of the wetland, the existing functionality, and designed a plan that will maintain those existing physical characteristics both through the construction phase and post-development through sedimentation and erosion control and appropriate stormwater management. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time, but I'd like to turn it back to Attorney Hollister, I believe, at this time, unless Tom, would you like to add anything in?
The only comment I would say is we, at the previous application, we had a list of comments from the town engineering staff. You had it in your packet. I will say that the comments tend to be both planning and zoning and wetland related, but I am confident to tell this commission that we received an updated list from Bruce Sear. But as I read through the comments, I do not see any comments that are wetland related, or drainage related. Just one little question about, dimensioning the size of a straw wattle and showing where our dewatering is. But otherwise, I can report to the commission that in fact we've addressed any drainage or erosion control or wetland related comments. And I think if you look through Bruce's most current plan, I would have to say they're all planning and zoning related, but we did work hard before the holidays to get to Bruce, and I appreciate that Bruce found a time over the holidays to review those, but that would be the only thing I would add. Megan, thank you.
And Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, there is also a memo from Ms. Rutherford dated December 31, which goes through the upland review activities, and it pointedly says there is no direct wetland impact. So that is, Mr. Chairman, that is our presentation. If you want to move on to commission questions, we're happy to do that. Before we go to the public, I would like to comment on the intervention.
Yeah, actually, I think what I'll do is kind of reverse roles tonight, and instead of putting Rich on the hot seat, I'll start with Guy. Do you have any questions?
No.
Jay?
Oh, hang on, I gotta check the chat box.
Okay.
Okay, Jade, I'm not sure you heard. No, but I had something in the chat already, but that had to do with the intervener status. So at this point, Jay, is there any questions specific to the presentation, the design, and wetland? No, we got a no from Jay with respect to that.
Okay. Ned?
No, I think that the sidewalk was very informative, and the plans kind of describe that, you know, show how most of the work is, all the construction is out of the 150-foot upland review area. So I really don't have anything else to add to that. And I'll just say, appreciate them moving the garage that was in the construction over a little bit to appease some of the people on the commission. That's all I have.
Okay. Mark?
Yeah, the only concern I had was just reading through what Shannon had written down about the storm water runoff, and I think between Tom and Megan explaining how they're going to deal with water off the property and then moving it into the wetlands, that process and that plan is sufficient to have very little impact to the existing wetlands. So hearing it again just verified what I already knew, but I have no questions at this time.
Okay, thank you. Robert?
I too appreciate the fact that Garage F was moved. That was one of the things that we talked about during the site walk and during our prior meetings. I think the applicants provided all the information we were looking for. We opted to hold the hearing to ensure there was going to be no undue impact to the vernal pool. And I think that the presentation by Attorney Hollister, Tom Daly, and Megan have all adequately addressed those issues. And I appreciate the ongoing review by the town staff and working through the technical details. But Mr. Chairman, I would be interested in hearing Attorney Hollister's perspective on the request for intervention. I think I'll wait to comment on the intervention till after we hear from Attorney Hollister. That's all.
Yeah, I think, Robert, on that, I think what I'm thinking of is we can ask our questions, then give Attorney Hollister the chance to go ahead and make comments, then turn it over to the public.
Great.
That's
Thank
kind
you,
of where
Mr.
I'm
Chairman.
going.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Regarding this 22A intervention petition, which we learned about 10 minutes before 7 o'clock, which is a concern.
Yeah.
Bob, you're on mute.
Wait, Attorney Hollister, can I?
We've got a couple more commissioners to go through first.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
No, I know, and it's the function of Zoom. It's the function of Zoom. I apologize, but we do have just a handful more commissioners for comment.
Thank you.
Okay, Dave?
Just one quick question. It was good to see that they added some treatment for those catch basins out on Quarry Road. It's a sediment chamber as opposed to a hydrodynamic separator. I was just curious as to the differences there, but I do realize that there's only 3 catch basins involved in it, as opposed to the many from the parking lots. But and hopefully a regular sediment chamber would be sufficient for that. But I'd just like to hear a little bit more about that.
You know, exactly what this is Tom Daly for the record again, exactly what you were saying. It's only taking 3 catch basins. So we thought at that point it was appropriate to come with a sediment chamber. So it's a baffled structure. Catch basin is located over the first part. It's actually a structure that's used regularly in the town of Glastonbury. It's actually they call it the town of Glastonbury sediment chamber. But I think it works well with this. It'll also allow pretty easy access. But it really had to do exactly what you're talking about. It's only picking up 3 catch basins and a very small portion of roadway. So that's why we chose to go with that at that location.
Thank you.
Is that it, Dave?
Yep.
Okay, Emily?
I have nothing at this time. Thank you.
Okay, Rich?
I have no questions at this time.
I've got a couple. Just for clarification purposes, I think you said there's 3 existing 24-inch concrete pipes.
That's correct.
That are located, I'm trying to get the right angle. Is it a little bit to the west of where the vernal pool is?
Let's see, Shannon's going to try to zoom us in, but just slightly west. Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Correct.
Now, is that in part of the roadway that's gravel, or is that paved?
That's paved.
Paved.
That's
Okay.
paved, and all the utilities are already stubbed on the other side. So except for putting a finished course of pavement and curbing down, it's our belief that that road's ready to go.
Okay, so you don't need to do any work on the pipes, like
No.
for redoing the road or anything like that. So that's all
No.
set and ready to go?
Correct. And even the 3 catch basins we talked about, we are not tying into those pipes. We're going away. So those pipes will not be modified at all as part of this application.
Okay, and I just wanted to double check because
Yep.
again, if you start playing around with the pipes,
Yep.
because if that's where part of the gravel road, I just wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
nothing was going on there. In terms of the basins that are being proposed, it looks like you've got some 4-bays that are there.
Correct.
Will there be standing water in there?
Only the intent is for the basins to drain over time. So,
Or what's
as
your definition of time?
well, it depends on the storm. So, and it depends on the time of year. We have put in the bottom of the basins. What you can see is these little gravel strips that are located just beyond the 4-bay. We put those in to promote infiltration so it drains quicker and gets into the soil. But Robert, I don't know, but I would hope to think that you're draining something between, 24 and 72 hours after a storm, but it depends on the storm and it depends on, the saturation time of year.
Well, the reason I'm raising the question is because I can see that as a possible safety issue if you've got kids living in this area. So is anything being done to make the basins child-proof, if you will?
Interesting question. We have not come up with that on many projects before. The good thing is it's on the other side of the gas easement. And what you can also see is you can't see, but there's a retaining wall along the entire parking lot there and behind garages E and F, almost right to the end. That retaining wall actually will have a fence and a guide rail in front of it. I mean, potentially we could extend that chain link fence just a little bit farther so it runs into and essentially then you'd have to jump a fence to get over there, cross the gas easement and into there. So that's something we could consider.
I think that would be advisable, just again,
Yep.
from a safety
Yep.
perspective.
So we would just extend that ornamental fence from the end of the retaining wall to the tree line to kind of tuck it up. Yeah, I don't see an issue with that.
Okay, and then just out of curiosity, I know you've got the 100-foot envelope around the vernal pool. Have you done any calculations as what the disturbed area is around a 750-foot envelope around the vernal pool?
Megan?
Yeah, yes, we have looked at that. We've looked at the overall. So if you look at these systems and put the 750-foot zone, critical terrestrial zone around these, and we subtract out the existing area of disturbance, which is significant along Farmington Avenue. We're looking at an existing critical terrestrial habitat disturbance of approximately, it's approximately a little bit over 20 acres within a 60-acre zone. And we're adding a little bit less than 7 acres to that. So it works out to be the existing, it's 37% is disturbed presently, and we're adding another 11%. So the overall critical terrestrial habitat is greater than 50% that remains with the proposed project.
Okay.
But-
And
Oh, good.
I'm sorry, and it's been a long time since I've been on Quarry Road. So is this where the old landfill is?
It would be plan
Yes.
left on off this plan. So yeah, there we go, Shannon, over there and a little bit farther down off the map. Correct.
Were you
Okay.
on the site? You were not on the site walk with us that day. So
No, I was not. I had knee replacement surgery.
oh, I'm sorry to hear that. So yeah, that exists, and that's kind of there's a public works facility that with a lot of material storage that is present there now. So that whole zone extends to the southeast. Right,
Oh,
exactly.
there you go. Yeah.
That's
Okay.
great. That's a great.
No,
job.
I just wanted to double check because I wasn't sure which side of the line the landfill was on. That's why I'm asking.
Right. So what we're looking at is sort of because we have this topographic low in this sort of confined area with this nice scrub shrub wetland that exists offsite to the southeast, we're looking at this southern sort of a directional buffer to the south in this location.
Okay, thank you. Attorney Hollister, we can return to you and listen to your suggestions.
Thank you. Am I being heard now, Shannon?
Yes, you're all set.
Thank you. Let me comment on the environmental intervention petition, which we saw about 10 minutes before the hearing began, which is a concern because since the application has been on file since early November. But let me just take a minute and, some people, some wetlands commissioners may have seen this before, but let me just give you my own summary of what this is and therefore what the obligations are that flow from it. An environmental intervention petition is filed to allow anyone, it doesn't have to be someone who lives adjacent to the site or even near the site. You could have someone who lives in Stonington file a intervention petition in Farmington and it's the same right. But it's a right to present evidence at a hearing in support of a claim that the proposed construction will cause unreasonable pollution to a natural resource of the state of Connecticut. Lawyers who file these petitions sometimes refer to them as an automatic right to become part of the proceedings. That is true only in the sense that they get to present evidence. The applicant has the right to counter that evidence, to challenge the claims of unreasonable pollution. And at the end of the hearing, the commission needs to vote on whether there has been proof of unreasonable pollution. If there is, what that does is it triggers an obligation to look at whether there are feasible and prudent alternatives to the impacts. To come around full circle on that, if there are no impacts, then both the petition fails and you have the basis to approve the wetlands application under your wetlands regulations in the normal course. In other words, you're familiar with the regulation that says, and there is no feasible and prudent alternative. If there's no wetlands disturbance, no watercourse disturbance, and everything else in the upland review area is not going to have an adverse impact, the feasible and prudent alternative requirement has been met. So environmental intervention is a right to show up at hearing and present evidence, nothing more. This said, even I could not recommend that the commission just ignore the petition. We don't want to create a procedural issue. So I don't have, as the applicant's lawyer, I don't have any objection to the petitioners going ahead with their presentation tonight. If they want to go ahead and make their claims, they will present their evidence. My understanding is they have an expert or two or three. Let's hear from that right now, and then we can deal with it. But we shouldn't. There shouldn't be a request tonight to put this off for a month or 2 months so they can start looking into the situation. That I think would be an abuse of the process. So the last suggestion that I would make is that if you're going to hear from the proposed petitioner, the intervener, it should be clear what evidence is their evidence as opposed to what else is presented by members of the general public, not specific to the supporting the intervention petition. So long way of saying we don't have any objection to the interveners going ahead with their presentation tonight, and obviously the general public should also be heard tonight. So those are my suggestions. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I mean, and if things were put off, fortunately, we're on a 2-week schedule, not a month or 2 months. So it's
okay. Good.
So Shannon,
Yes, sir.
do we need to formally accept it for the record?
I honestly, I don't know. I think we can allow them at this particular point in time, allow them to speak as part of public comment. And make sure, I think I start with the attorney. I don't have everything, but I know they're there on the screen, and let him then roll through their panel of experts that they wish to have speak, and then can have the general public speak. So I think I would start with the intervener, but just have them speak as part of the public comment.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Eisner.
Yep.
Yeah, I think procedurally, I wouldn't want to accept the petition because it did come in late. It was after close of business, but I think we have it. We recognize it. I would be in favor of hearing what the interveners have to say, but I wouldn't necessarily want to move to accept the petition because it was filed late. But I also appreciate hearing from the applicant's attorney, because I was interested to see if there was concern or opposition about hearing any information from the petitioning party. So that's my take, is we should recognize it, but I would not be in favor of formally accepting it at this time.
Okay, and seeing as how the applicant doesn't appear to have any objections to the petitioner going forward, Attorney Ainsworth, are you set to go?
Yeah, he will be as soon as he can't talk at the moment, but.
Okay, so Shannon, but should we do that first, or should we go to the public first?
Oh, we can. I just have to unmute him. So I think Attorney Ainsworth, I believe you should be all set.
Okay. Good evening. This is Attorney Keith Ainsworth. I'm an attorney in private practice at 51 Elm Street in New Haven. It is my privilege to represent this evening Lynn and Richard Fitchman, who are abutting property owners to a portion of the site. They reside at 40 Prattling Pond Road. And I just wanted to start out with an initial comment that I know there's some concern, and there's been expressed concern by several parties that the intervention has been filed late. I was formally retained yesterday and only had the ability to review the impact assessment in between that time and now. And so it put a great bit of constraint on my ability to make an assessment of the project. You know, there is a right to a fundamentally fair hearing under existing Connecticut case law. Megan versus Zoning Board of Appeals, 106 Con App 602, a 2008 case, and Pasalugo versus Guy to Siebert Dairy, 149 Con App 478, a 2014 case. That, you know, fundamentally fair hearings require sufficient notice. And it's my understanding that the wetlands impact assessment was only posted on the website at 11:31 a.m. Yesterday. And we were notified by Shannon Rutherford that that was the case. That's a fairly narrow period of time. And while I appreciate that this has been pending for a long time, due to the constraints of the public's ability to access records during our pandemic. We've changed notice requirements in terms of where they can be posted, but if they're not actually posted online, it does impact the ability of the public to actually meaningfully participate in the process. It is absolutely not my intent to sandbag or blindside the commission. I have in fact sat on commissions and boards myself, and I sympathize with the concern that look, you need notice as well as we do of what people are intending to do. That said, there is a right under 22A16, 22A19, that allows the public to intervene at any time in a proceeding prior to its finish. And that's what we've done. And as soon as we were able, I had to gather my experts, they had to review things, I had to review things. And as soon as I could possibly do it within hours of getting the information, I assembled the intervention petition. And I only was able to get it executed this afternoon by my client and formally send it over. So understand that this was not some strategic maneuver. I want you to understand that, my clients simply want to participate in the process. That said, even within that short period of time, I can say that there's been some difficulty in the public being able to access the documents. And you may hear from some of them this evening saying that they did attempt to try to access the documents and were unable to. And while I don't fault anyone for that, it's difficult going from the old format to a totally electronic one. And sometimes documents don't get posted, quite right, or they don't upload perfectly. But nonetheless, it is fair that people get a chance to, review what these projects entail and what the impacts might be. It would be my request, and I know there was the statement by Attorney Hollister that this only provides a right of an ability to present evidence. Well, it's not quite that limited. The intervention petition does provide for obviously a right to participate and cross-examine and present evidence, but it also has to be a fair opportunity to do so. And in addition, it does provide a right of appeal, and it does provide essentially party status, whereas the public, you might be able to cut them off at 3 minutes, which I don't suggest, by the way. But I think you have to give the interveners an opportunity to meaningfully participate. And I would actually request that the hearing at least be held over for a cycle so that my experts can have a proper opportunity to examine the materials. It may well provide some insights to the council or the commission. And I think you shouldn't receive this as a hostile event. It's actually a public participatory feature of our legal landscape that allows the public to provide you with additional information. And that's never a bad thing. So with that, I do have my two experts here. And Dr. Michael Clemens, who is familiar to some of you, who is a conservation biologist with extensive backgrounds in wetland science. I did submit his CV, and oh, by the way, to Attorney Hollister's point, as soon as I knew that Attorney Hollister was representing the clients, I emailed him within minutes of knowing his identity, his identity and his role in this process. So I absolutely did not delay in providing him with copies of my intervention. I also have with me George Logan from REMA Environmental, who is a well-known registered Connecticut wetland scientist and a conservation consultant. And I will ask the two of them to comment, but I would like the ability to have the hearing held open. I don't think it's unreasonable to allow a period of time for the experts to take a look. I actually don't know what they'll find out between now and the next meeting, but I know that they'll have a more fair opportunity to do so. Nonetheless, I would like them to comment on what they've been able to discern from their initial review. With that, one comment about the filing of the documents. I was unable on the website to find where I should be filing these documents. If it is with the clerk's office, if someone could send me the email or give me the email address to send it to, I would be happy to send it to that email address. I sent it to the 2 email addresses that were provided to me as ways to get the materials in, and thankfully they did arrive. But with that, I'd like to start with Dr. Clemens in no particular order, but introduce him to comment on his review.
Go ahead, Dr. Clemens.
Yeah, well, I'm not seeing, again, because I didn't know. They're in the, so I don't know how he has signed in.
Oh, he may be under the email Fenbois.
There we go. It's here.
That
now it just
that
moved.
sounds very familiar.
Hang on, it just moved. Where'd it go? I got Keith's hands up, but there we go. Why does this keep moving?
Okay, do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
please
I can,
go ahead.
Dr. Clemens.
Excuse me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. I'm odd that I came in under an email because I'm seeing myself as my name.
No, it does show as your name. I just have 25 people on the attendee list, so it takes a
Okay.
little bit to
I'm so
scroll
sorry.
through to find you.
I'm not quite familiar with how the webinar works. I don't know how I turn my camera on.
No, that's fine. We can hear you, and and I'm assuming you've got a computer screen and you could see the presentation of it.
I can see, and I actually like what's right up there.
Perfect.
There. And I know many of the, good evening, Mr. Hollister and Mr. Hannon and Ms. Raymond, all people that I've had the pleasure of working with in various capacities. My comments are really going to be very circumspect. Ms. Raymond already answered one of my questions, and that is that 37% of the critical terrestrial upland habitat has been already lost to existing development, and the expected increase will be 11%, if I heard correctly, yielding a net of 48%. It would have been helpful to have seen it in a more customary manner where you actually show it and you show pre and post. And if this is continued, it would be nice to sort of get it in that format where we actually see that 750-foot outer ring. That's the area between the 100-foot envelope and the 750-foot limit. It would be helpful to see that visually. And so we could all concur that those figures are based accurately. I understand that a large part of the CTH, or critical terrestrial upland habitat, is basically on the other side of Farmington Avenue, which effectively renders it inaccessible. So if this is continued, a more graphic presentation would be helpful. My larger question, though, comes to the amount of effort that was expended in the actual inventory on the site. Nowhere in the report did I see how many hours were spent, how many visits were made, whether minnow traps were used to assess the pools, or was just an egg mass count. And I say this only because, for better or for worse, I do have information about this ecosystem, and it is a system which drains along the base of the ridge, and where there are both reports of spotted salamanders and spotted turtles, which are state listed in that system. But more puzzling to me, or more definitive from my perspective, is some of you may know that I'm in the process of updating my 1993 herpetology, amphibians and reptiles of Connecticut, and has been delayed a bit by the pandemic, but now it is actually in process of being published by the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. And I went and looked at the database that I have for that book and found that in 2017, exactly on that site, there is a wetland dependent species, the ribbon snake, which was reported there. Now, it was curious that it's not in the NDDB's database, but the photograph and georeferencing in the database for this book shows it to be right on those two vernal pools, somewhere in that general vicinity. So that leads me to question, we have the definite presence of one state listed species immediately on the area in question. We have reports of two other species, well, the spotted turtle, which is state listed, the spotted salamander, which is another obligate species within this system, and we all recognize that this is a linear system that is accumulated along the base of a ridge. And so my question then comes, how much effort was spent in examining this system to have had these species not be detected, as well as the potential for the eastern box turtle, which also exists nearby. So that is always one of the big questions that a researcher raises. It is relatively easy to prove a presence, but to definitively prove an absence of those species requires more field work or a greater effort. So absent any indication of how much field work was expended, it's hard for me to sort of assess the robustness of this survey, the methodologies that were used, and whether potentially species that are there were not detected. The only other question I have, Ms. Raymond did say there's a smidge of grading in the envelope, but there's already intrusion in the envelope by Quarry Road. So that has been addressed. It gets to these detention basins. On page 22 of the Best Development Practices Manual that I believe Attorney Ainsworth has submitted, there's the question of these basins, apart from the safety issues that Mr. Hannon raised, serving as decoy breeding sites for wood frogs and possibly spotted salamanders. The way to remedy that is to create a exclusion act, a fencing or way to exclude frogs and salamanders from entering those detention basins. That would be something of value that can be accomplished in several different ways to accomplish that exclusion. And I think although the vernal pools are indeed downstream of the site, you're really in a wetland corridor, and it's not unlikely that you have wetland dependent wildlife moving up and down that corridor between these various wetlands. That really is, in summary, my questions, quite limited, would be helpful to understand a bit more about the level of effort and protecting these species from inadvertently breeding in those detention ponds, which by the very nature of them being detention ponds, almost certainly they function as a trap or ecological sink to the population of vernal pool obligate species. Thank you. You have my CV in the record, and that concludes my questions and comments.
Thank
Attorney
you.
Hollister, do you want to address Dr. Clemens' questions? And then we can go to Mr. Logan.
I think we can go to Mr. Logan. That'd be fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, George.
Oh, hang on.
Okay, I think I've been unmuted.
Yep, you're all set.
Okay, great. Well, good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year. I think we're going to have a better year than last year. At least that's my hope. As Mr. Attorney Ainsworth suggested, I too was retained as of a few hours ago. I've had a little opportunity through my busy schedule to take a sort of a cursory look at the application materials. Again, we didn't have the wetlands assessment until probably midday. I think Shannon was kind enough to send that to us after we told her that we were involved. So I'm kind of still in the thick of looking through the information, and I was very helpful to hear the applicant's presentation, and I think some of my questions have already been answered, such as for the detention basins. But I do have some questions and potentially some concerns that have kind of arisen from my limited review. And again, these are things that I think can be answered, but it would be good to have this information. I noticed, and by the way, I did communicate with Megan a little earlier today, just kind of tell her that I'm involved. That's we all belong to the same society. We have some professional ethics that if we're involved in sort of opposite sides, although I don't see myself as being on an opposite side, I'm here as hopefully as an objective reviewer. So she was notified and she did answer back, and thank you, Megan. One of the things that I noticed as I was looking through the plans, and again, putting on my soil scientist hat, and as you all know, I'm a registered soil scientist. I'm also a professional wetland scientist, and I'm also certified as a senior ecologist through the Ecological Society of America, and have been for quite some time. But as a soil scientist, I looked at the wetland delineations, and one of the things that I noticed, and maybe I'm kind of need to be cleared about this, is that on the site itself, the wetland delineation appears to have numbers, whereas the wetland that's just immediately off-site of the smaller parcel does not appear to have any wetland markers on it. And it seems to be more of what they call a wet line or wet edge. And it seems to conflict with the topography, at least the topography that was put into the record. So my question is, was that wetland not delineated? And the reason for why that question might be important is that you have an interesting kind of geological, superficial geology here. You have some basal till, some of it is thin, some of it is thicker, that's coming down the slope, and it hits these areas that are not till. So you have some organic deposition there, but there is a little bit of a slope. And so usually it's nice to be able to see if there's an actual seepage wetland edge along the interface of the hill coming down into the greater wetland. And that can be important sometimes for understanding whether there's going to be a hydrologic impact, which is a physical impact to the edge of the wetland from what's being proposed. So that was one question that came up. And as Dr. Clemens indicated, I was also wondering if maybe there's additional information that Megan has gleaned from her sidewalks out there that's not in the record. I typically I'm usually blamed for putting too much information into the record, but depending on the application, sometimes I think it's important. So I didn't see a lot of information on the wetland itself. The vegetative inventory would have been a good thing, sort of a total wetland inventory of the vegetation, especially close to the activities. Also, usually I will, put a wildlife inventory. I mean, obviously, Megan went out and looked at the vernal pools. That's usually a high priority for all of us to look at. But I also usually spend time and try to get an idea of what the total wildlife utilization, specifically of wetland dependent or wetland associated species might be. So that was one thing. The other thing that I noted too is, and as you look at some of the secondary source information that's available, one of the things that you notice is that the underlying bedrock here is interesting, and it's kind of unique in the area, and it's two members of basalt, the Talcott basalt and the Holyoke basalt, that come together. And what we have found in Connecticut, and there's the ridge that's just up to the west, sorry, to the northwest, that in areas that have this different chemistry due to the base, to the bedrock. And by the way, I think Megan did indicate there was some rock outcrops. The chemistry is different. It's more of a basic sweet soil. It's not acidic as we find in many other parts of Connecticut. And typically that's an indication that the probability of listed species is up, not only in the uplands, but also along the wetland edge as that seepage water comes down, or as the runoff comes off the hill. So that would have been another reason for why to have a more robust vegetative inventory, and one might be available. We just don't have it here. So that's another thing. And by the way, I did usually when I look through these kinds of applications even from my own work, I try to get an idea of what has happened here, what the site utilization has been over the years. And that's an easy thing nowadays to do. I just sit on my comfy chair and I open up a few websites, and I can look at archival photographs from the State Library or from Magic, from UConn, and kind of get an idea of are there any portions of the site that have been definitively undisturbed for a long time? And the answer here is yes. The upper portion of the larger parcel, not the square one. That square one was in agriculture, probably as a pasture, and at some point there was maybe even some fruit trees that were out there for a long time. But the upper edge of that, so upper meaning out towards the west, and then the northern piece of the larger parcel have been in forest cover since at least 1934, and probably before that. And that kind of, again, leads me to think that maybe that's an area that should have been, just from its conservation value, and not just from a wetland perspective, what's downhill, but from conservation value, to see if there are any potential listed species there. Now, one of the reasons that I'm a little concerned about the wetland that's just off-site, and particularly since it doesn't appear to have been delineated, and since the topo that I see might indicate that there is an edge that's sort of a seepage slope instead of just a flat organic swamp, which I think is what happens with the rest of it, is that Mr. Daly indicated that one of the things that is being done here is that a significant watershed that's uphill, and I did peek at the drainage report, and I did see that, is being rerouted around to pipe discharges. And typically that's not a bad idea, to mix good water with potentially water that you want to clean out, because that makes your water quality renovation a little more difficult to mix good water with water you want to clean out. But in this particular case, the rerouting to discharges might actually be denying that wetland edge with the proper hydrology that it's used to, coming off the hill from shallow groundwater flow, particularly during the early portion of the growing season, which will then, feed certain types of vegetation that might or might not be uncommon or rare here. So I'm not sure how to answer that, and that's something that I'm basically volleying back to the applicant to explain. So those are some of the things that I'm looking at, and of course I'm very interested also in the vernal pool ecology, but I have an expert that's of a higher order than I am, so I will defer to Dr. Clemens on those matters. So that's kind of where I'm at this point, and my review is continuing in this project, and I really, really appreciate you listening to me tonight. Thank you.
Attorney Hollister?
Am I on?
Yeah, you're fine.
Yes.
Attorney Hollister, you're set.
Mr. Chairman, I guess my question now on behalf of the applicant is that, are we going to get reports from Dr. Clements and Mr. Logan? And if so, can those be filed well in advance of whenever the hearing resumes? I think it will just be all wasting our time if we come back in 2 weeks and we hear we'll provide the information that has been requested, but we come back in 2 weeks and now we're hearing the answers for the first time. We'll just get a continuation to another 2 weeks. So I guess we could set a schedule that for the interveners and their experts to file reports, and then we have some shot at getting the applicant's response and closing the hearing when we reconvene. Thank you.
Hey, Shannon, this is going before planning and zoning, right?
Monday night.
Okay. Attorney Ainsworth, what are you looking at to turn around some documents and get them into both the commission and the applicant?
It's hard to say. I mean, two weeks is probably minimal. Certainly if there's a hearing on Monday, that's going to be, really cutting it short. Like I said, we only got the wetlands assessment, a little over 24 hours before the hearing.
I'm going to take issue with that because many of the neighbors have called, and at any time they called, their documents were sent to them. So yes, the site plans have been on, and that is typically what the town of Farmington has been posting online. As soon as we received a call requesting additional information, that information was sent as I was on the phone with the individual that requested the information. So you can't ask for something that you weren't even retained until 24 hours ago. So I'm not really sure how that's germane to this discussion.
I'm just trying to find out what we're looking at as a time frame. If documents are going to be submitted, and again, documents that are going before planning and zoning, that's not us, that's planning and zoning. We're looking at conceivably different things. So I'm just trying to figure out what we're looking at in terms of Mr. Logan and Dr. Clemens getting comments in, because I'm trying to figure out where we go from here.
Okay.
And if it's something that's going to take a month, that's problematic. If it's something that's going to take a week, that's less problematic. So I'm just trying to get an idea as to what the response time is for Mr. Logan and Dr. Clemens to get comments in, just to get it on the record also in what their comments are.
And I perfectly understand that. I guess I have to defer to my experts to see what their ability to get the information in. But if we're talking about a 2-week cycle for a hearing, and Mr. Hollister would like these well in advance of the next hearing, I'm gathering that's getting about a week's time. I don't know if that's sufficient. I mean, I'm not certain why a month's delay would be wholly unreasonable, but Certainly, if my experts had a couple of weeks, it might not be as difficult for them to get the information in, but
I'll just ask them directly. Dr. Clemens, what do you need for time? And Mr. Logan, what do you need for time?
This is George Logan. I think you can hear me. So I know that in 2 weeks, I'm back before you for another matter also, which I'm also preparing for. And it's actually some other things that I'm doing. And I'm pretty busy right now. So I don't think I can get a report out before the next meeting, but I can certainly get it for right after the next meeting. So by the end of that week.
So that would be February 22nd. I'm looking at a calendar. The next meeting is February 20th, 2 weeks from today. That Friday is February.
I mean, January 20th.
Sorry, January.
I thought I lost a month there for a moment.
I feel like I have.
Yeah. So, and then your next meeting is February
3rd.
So I can certainly have my report a minimum of a week before you, the 3rd, if not more than that.
No, the Friday is January 22nd.
The Friday is January 22nd.
It needs to be in by then in order for staff and the applicant to have a week to review it.
That is doable. I can commit to that.
So that I can then have everything in an agenda review on January 29th for the February 3rd meeting.
I can commit to that, certainly.
Okay. Dr. Clemens, would that work for you?
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, what you're going to get from me is what pretty much I told you, written out. So it's really not a big report at all. So when do you want it by?
January 22nd at the latest. We'll take it earlier.
Not a problem.
Shannon, this is Ned Stanchion. Did we accepted this application on December 2nd?
No, it was accepted in November. And then we
Okay.
did a site walk in November prior to Thanksgiving. And then at the December meeting, the commission determined there's a significant activity.
Okay. All right.
And
So even further back.
so now we're at a public hearing.
I don't know. I have a problem with giving him additional time when, I mean, we've been dealing with this for a long time already. And to
Right,
send,
but the
and I'm with Robert in that I don't like the fact that, you know, we get something at 5 o'clock that has a completely changes, you know, our schedule for this application. And I don't think that's fair to the applicant. It's not fair to the commission.
Okay, so I'm gonna just, for point of reference, the commission has seen this in November and in December. And yes, it has been posted on a public agenda that is on the website, and the public agenda is sent out through Everbridge. But neither of those two preceding meetings were public hearings. With this being a public hearing, the notice requirement is 10 days prior, that the notices are mailed 10 days prior to the meeting. So, and it has to go certified mail. So presumably these residents received the mailings anywhere from 5 to 7 days ago. The sign is posted at the property 7 days prior to the meeting. So they have not been working through this as long as you have. And they,
Okay.
from a notice standpoint, you know, unless somebody's monitoring our agendas, and even then they could have looked at it, but there was no public comment opportunity until tonight.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so we're looking to get comments in on or before January 22nd, which means if we keep this open, which it sounds like we will, it would be to February 3rd, correct?
Correct.
Um,
And we have other public comment.
right, so at this point in time, do we want to open it up to the public? And you've got control of that because I'm not sure who from the
Oh,
public
you.
is here.
And I think I want to try to do something here.
This is always a unique experience when you're dealing with the computer instead of in person.
No, it is. And everybody's been very patient. And Mr. Fitchman's hand is up. I was going to
I think Mr. Hollister's hand is up too.
Mr. Chairman, we also have a comment coming in through chat.
Okay, well, Mr. Hollister is not muted. So Attorney Hollister isn't muted.
Thank you. If I may, Mr. Chairman, you might caution those listening to not use the chat feature because it's going to get missed on the public record. If someone has something to say, they should raise their hand and go through Shannon. And that's for their benefit.
No, I understand because we are recording it and it's hard to record the reading.
Yeah, it doesn't record at all. So that chat function does not get recorded.
Yes.
Okay, and Attorney Ainsworth, I'm going to put your hand down for now. I'm assuming you don't have anything else to offer at the moment.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Shoot. Sorry, you guys are bumping around. They shift on, the line shifts on me anyway. Mr. Fitchman, you can unmute yourself if you'd like to.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, and just to clarify, this is the same Mr. Fitchman that you were being represented by Mr. Ainsworth, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Well, first of all, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk at this hearing. And my dad was a butcher in Farmington in 1959, and I've been here pretty much ever since. So I really like the town. Just to clear one thing up, and I think you did, Ms. Rutherford, do it to some extent. I know this has been going on for a while, but we actually were notified. We got a notice in certified mail, I think, after Christmas, but there was actually no document. I went to the post office, which if you've been to the post office during the pandemic, it's quite an experience. It took about 45 minutes and they couldn't understand what happened. They called the mail carrier. It turned out she was a substitute mail carrier. And the woman that worked at the post office classified it as weird, but I never really actually did get the document. I wound up calling, I think, Sandra Michaud to try and find out the details. So while I know that I'm hearing now that this has been an ongoing thing and there may be things posted on the website, as somebody that's imminently affected by this, I really did not find out about this until a very, very short time ago. And that's, you know, the folks that are speaking tonight were kind enough to take my call in the past couple of days and put this together. It's not that I'm trying to be rude or you know, I know what it's like. I've been on committees and I don't want to make anybody unhappy, but this is really, really important to those of us that live adjacent to this. And we would just like an opportunity to get the facts in. And it seems to me with a project of this scope that, you know, delay of a couple of weeks or a month, probably not happy for the developer, but I don't think it's going to have a tremendous impact. And I think for us, we've been living in this very quiet neighborhood, residential neighborhood. I've been here for 22 years and I'd like the opportunity to at least have a chance to get these facts in, and they may or may not make any difference, but I would certainly appreciate it as a resident of the town.
Understood. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask, does anyone else, because there's quite a list of folks that have called in. Does anyone else wish to speak regarding this? I can see Mr. Zatujan. Okay, I think you can, if you go ahead and unmute yourself, you should be able to address, please identify yourself and your property address, and then you can address the commission with your questions and comments.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, thank you. I'm also here with my wife, Kimberly.
Hello. Can I get your full name for the record and your property address, please?
Douglas Zaytunjian, it's Zeytonjian, and we're at 42 Prattling Pond Road.
Thank you.
We abut this project on the western side of the, if we're all looking at the same map, we're the second house down. But like Dr. Fishman mentioned, we've learned about this in very short period of time as well. And we're very concerned about the impact it will have on our property. All we are interested in being a meaningful participant, as someone else said. We've been at the location for going on 21 years. And with small children, we've been, our oldest, who's now in college, is a very avid outdoors person. And he comes home with all kinds of wildlife. And I can tell you that we have a very complex ecosystem on Prattling Pond Road. From coming home and there's a bear in our driveway, or a bobcat, fox and coyote and deer, and fisher cats, wild turkeys, mallards, raccoons, possums. It's we have a tree in our yard that's a nesting area for a red-tailed hawk. We have red-headed woodpeckers in the neighborhood, box turtles. The impact that taking down that acreage right behind our property, we're very concerned about the impact of runoff. How it, we've had no involvement of what the impact to the ecosystem would be on our land, and prior to the notification, this notification, which is, less than a week old, the first time we learned of this development at all was a letter from 402 Farmington LLC from a Kyle Richard, who from Farm Blend Management LLC 11 days ago. So I think there's a serious concern, and that's why you're hearing attorneys that are describing their being engaged in a day or two. We are in the process of engaging an attorney as well. But this has been very, very short order for people that abut this. I'm a direct abutter of this project. And there's, we need to have representation here. And up until this meeting at this point, we haven't had any. So we want to be on record with that fact and objecting to this being approved today without a continuance because of the short period of time we've had to get prepared. We've, been in contact. The neighbors are running around talking to each other, all very the same story. We're not sure what's going on and how it's going to impact us as long-standing residents of Prattling Pond Road. And there are small children in this neighborhood. There are, the most recent purchasers in the neighborhood are families with small children. And it's, you also have, a lot of hikers in the area. But so how this impacts us, we need some time to analyze it. And that's really all I have to say. But I appreciate being heard, but that's our position.
Thank you. Okay, I am going to ask again, okay, I see a Terry Corson has a hand raised, so you should be able to unmute yourself and address the commission. Again, I ask you give your full name and address. Terry Corson.
Hi, Shannon.
Yes.
This is Craig Corson.
Okay.
CRAIG-KORSEN, 52 Prattling Pond Road.
Thank you.
And thanks for listening to us. We've been here, if I'm not mistaken, about 18 years, and our sentiments echo those of our other neighbors. Obviously, my property is directly abuts this. This proposed project is literally in my front yard. At the edge of my front yard. The building would start. I'm just to the north of it, I believe. And like the other neighbors, we'd just like to get a better grip on what's going on. We were just notified. We received a letter from the town on the 29th. I'm not an expert on elevations or wetlands or anything like that, but I know in my backyard, at certain times of year, I have a pond in my backyard. In the woods beyond my backyard, it's a pond. The runoff from the ledge up there is significant, and I mean, it percolates up through the cracks of my driveway. It's destroyed my driveway. My front yard's like a swamp. And if I'm not mistaken, my house is, a noticeable amount above where this project going on. So with that said, I'd like to have an expert analyze the whole situation too. And I'm concerned about drainage into my yard, changing the drainage off of my yard, things like that. So aside from the obvious, obvious objections I have, which have nothing to do with wetlands, those are my concerns with the wetlands right now. So thanks for hearing me.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. There's someone that's on as Charter Oak Photographic Society.
Sorry, that's me. My name is Steve Silk. I'm at 74 Prattling Pond Road. My concern has to do with the landfill or dump, which, we know is filled with all sorts of toxins. And while I understand this is off the proposed building site, I also understand that the building is going to require a rather massive earthworks effort and lots of blasting. Like most of the houses on Prattling Pond, we are on a well. And I am concerned about all this excavation activity, opening fissures in the rock and potentially polluting our drinking water. What can you tell me about that?
We can note your question and the applicant can look into it. I don't believe there's any further information regarding that. If you have any other questions, you're welcome to ask those.
Well, I mean, that seems fairly significant.
I'm not discounting the significance of it.
Yeah, no, that's my primary concern.
So,
I know that has been an issue in past efforts to build there. Nobody knows what's really in that dump area. People at the time could just dump anything there. So I find it a significant concern that's not at all addressed here. So thanks for listening.
okay, thank you for your question. Okay. Okay, does anyone else from the public have any questions, comments, anything they want to share with the applicant or the commission with respect to this, either in favor or in opposition? Any questions regarding this matter? Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'm not seeing any additional hands raised. So again, if you have a question, you use the Zoom function to raise your hand electronically, and then you will be addressed just as your peers have this evening. No.
If you're not
Mr.
seeing
Chairman, I'm
anything
not seeing
else,
any further questions.
okay, if that's the case, then I think where we're at with this is continue it to February 3rd, correct? 7 o'clock.
Correct.
We're looking at having the materials come in from
Right.
Mr. Logan on or before the 22nd of January, and looking for Dr. Clemens' comments on or before January 22nd. There were a couple of comments raised by the public that the applicant may also want to try to maybe do a little bit of research and provide some answers at that point in time.
And whoever, I need you to mute your phones, please. Okay, I think we're good.
Attorney Hollister?
Mr. Chairman and members, I just want to put on the record that we will provide the additional information that was requested by Dr. Clements and Mr. Logan. We'll provide that to them hopefully within a couple of days, so that they will have ample time to look at it and work it into their reports. We will try to file our own responses to other public questions also on the 22nd of January. And for anyone else who is retaining an expert, whatever, you can contact my office or Mr. Richards. And if you want information, we will get it to you as quickly as we can. And Shannon will keep you in the loop so you know what questions we have, or what requests for information we have received and have responded to. Thank you.
Certainly, thank you.
Do we need a motion to continue it to the 3rd?
Yes, please.
Okay, would somebody
So-
care to make a motion to move or to continue the public hearing until the 3rd of February, starting at 7 o'clock?
Move to
So
continue.
moved, Robert.
Robert Eisner with the motion, and we need a second.
Dave will second.
Okay,
In a second.
those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? So be it. We continue it to the 3rd.
And Mr. Chairman, Jay Tulin posted aye in the chat.
Thank you, Jay.
Thank you, Robert. Okay. Thank you, everyone. That'll conclude the discussion on this matter for this evening.
Thank you.
Going to new business. My understanding is Jake Clark will not be here tonight, so we need to table this until the next meeting.
Correct.
Okay. So continuing in a long line of recent events, the show cause hearing at 16 Clearbrook.
Yep. Just give me 1 second and I'll get the documents here. And I think the property owner and Ian Cole are on. So, yeah. Ian, are you taking the lead with this?
Sure. Good evening. For the record, Ian Cole, professional soil scientist, professional wetland scientist. I'm here tonight with Mr. Riviera. I was retained by Mr. Riviera to assist in resolving the recent cease and desist order. This order involved the removal of vegetation within the 100-foot upland review area. Last week, I had an opportunity to visit the site and do a quick assessment with Mr. Riviera present to go over the limits of the recent vegetation removal. And I wanted to get out there pretty quickly to take advantage of the ground while it was free of snow. Just in the event we got a big snowstorm, I could kind of see what went on there. My initial thoughts are that the area was stabilized and no immediate actions were needed. The backyard here is flat, and the ground still has cover to it, so there's not an instance where we have exposed or bare soil, creating a risk to the wetlands. And while on site, I think it's also noteworthy, Mr. Riviera had the easement surveyed and very well marked out and delineated prior to this work. So it's very easy to see and demonstrate that there was no encroachment into the conservation easement or the wetland boundary. And I think that is notable. The intent here is to work with the applicant to put together a more comprehensive wetland application. The intent here was to gain more lawn and start a feasibility study for some backyard improvements to maybe include a playscape and a pool. So with that being the intent and our time of year here, we were looking to come back to the commission with a complete application, and during that process, some restoration activities would be accounted for in that wetland application for the overall property improvements. I guess I would defer. I'd be happy to answer any questions from the commission at this time, but otherwise, for additional background, Mr. Riviera can provide that if the commission has any questions.
I was going to say, I didn't know, because I can see that he's on the phone, so I don't know if Mr. Rivera wanted to speak before we handed it over back to the commission for questions.
Yeah, thanks, Shannon. Adam Rivera, property owner at 16 Clarebrook. So just for some context for folks, we just purchased this house this past October, and when we bought the house, we were really clear with the prior owners that we were looking for a property that had some flat land that we could put a lawn in and put a pool in. And they said, listen, we were going to do the same thing. We cleared the property. And my wife got sick back in 2007, and we ended up not going forward with it. But it's a perfectly suitable spot to clear, and we were going to do all of this work. My wife and I, not being able to verify that, went on the GIS website. We looked, we could see that the property had been cleared. There's pictures from 2009, 2012 where it was completely cleared. We said, okay, it looks like it's been cleared. And so we moved forward with the purchase of the property. And that was, I have 3 young kids, and the idea here was to have a yard and a pool for them in the big. And so when we moved in, we quickly, engaged with the pool company to say, let's go forward with this. They said, looks good. Clear the land, we'll come back. I engaged a local landscaping firm who said, this is scrub brush. I've done this for lots of houses in the neighborhood. Be careful, there's a conservation easement back here. You might want to get it surveyed. At the time, I was quite busy getting the house set up, getting my kids into school. And so I outsourced it. I paid a tremendous amount of money to a surveying firm who surveyed it. I was careful to say, make sure you delineate the conservation line. I know from the landscaping firm, and frankly, I know from the HOA, there's an HOA where I live, that folks had told me that there's this conservation thing, you got to be worried about it, you can't touch it. So they marked it out very carefully. And then the landscapers gave me a proposal to say, let us clear the brush. They cleared the brush. They cut down some trees, none of the big trees, because they don't do big trees. They just do small trees. I need an arborist to get the big trees done. And then Bruce came out to see us. And I could say Bruce and Shannon have been nothing but excellent and very helpful in helping us navigate this process. We stopped work immediately. And then a few days later, Bruce told us, in fact, yes, the property had been cleared prior. Back in 2007, it was cleared. But the prior owners went far into the easement and into the wetlands. And at the time, they hired Mylone and McBroom to do a restoration plan, which included some restoration and also a site plan for what their planned improvements were at the time. They never went forward with those planned improvements because the wife was ill. And so that's where we are today. We're committed to doing the right thing. A few folks were recommended to us as soil scientists. We quickly engaged Ian, and we will take all steps necessary to ensure that we do this the right way. We want to be respectful of the process and certainly respectful of the wetlands. And so we're committed to getting this done the right way. So happy to answer any questions, but I certainly defer to Ian as the expert here. I frankly didn't know soil scientists were a thing until a few weeks ago. So I'm learning lots here, but hopefully that context is helpful for the commission. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Shannon, a quick question. So the plantings were not done after 2007, 2008?
So our understanding is the restoration that was required as part of the enforcement action that came in 2008. Those plantings were done.
Okay.
Some of those plantings, there were wetland conservation easement, and I believe a few, forgive me as I page down, but I think Bruce has the plan maybe in here. The full, maybe, there we go. The restoration plan. So I think what Bruce indicated, because you could see, here's the conservation easement line running through. And Bruce indicated that there, perhaps some of these smaller plantings that were part of the area that had been cleared, but were outside of the conservation easement, had been removed. So some of the, and I say some, like it looks like anywhere from 3 to 5 at the very most small shrub bushes that had been planted as part of the restoration activities in 2008 may have been removed. But as Ian said, and Bruce verified, and he's some of the photos he's taken, you could see the line that was marked, and none of the clearing took place within the conservation easement. But the wetland line is just here off the edge of the page, and the 150-foot upland review comes well into the yard. So I know we run into incidental and customary use of the backyard, and that's normally where we would have the pool. Wasn't, and the pool would, an in-ground pool would normally be reviewed as part of, a review process with the commission, and sometimes depending upon the proximity to the wetlands, we make the determination that it's customary to the backyard, and sometimes it requires a full permit depending on proximity. So I figured we better have this all come in before all of you.
Okay, so what we're looking at then is some of the landscaping and a pool in the 150-foot setback area.
Correct.
Okay.
No direct wetland impact and no conservation easement impact.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that I was totally clear on what we're looking at. So I guess we'll go ahead and I'll start back at the normal top of the list and start with Rich if you've got any questions.
No, I don't have any questions.
Emily?
I have no questions right now.
Dave?
Sorry, I was muted. No questions from me either.
Robert?
No questions, just a comment that we appreciate the cooperation from Mr. Rivera. He's retained a capable professional to help him with the design, and the proposed work should be acceptable within the upland review area once we just have the details that we need. So that's all.
Okay. Mark? Mark still on?
You should be. Did he mute him? Mark, I think you're muted. Yeah, Mark, you gotta unmute yourself. Oh, Colin. That's the phone, yeah.
Doesn't sound good.
No, that doesn't sound good. It's not coming through, Mark. So if you have a question, use the chat function as best I can tell you. So use the chat function and type it in.
Well, while he's doing that, I'll go to Ned.
Yeah, I just wanted to check with Ian. You said you went to the property and the area that was cleared was stable and for at least the winter?
Yes, yeah, it's very flat in the backyard where this activity occurred. And the ground structure there is very bony. There's a lot of surface stones. There's still a fair amount of leaf litter and some of the residual, wood chips that are on the ground. So you can see from these photos here, what's left there is the remnants from, the vegetation that was removed.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, I did not see anything in chat from Mark, but I did see something from Jay earlier saying he had no questions.
Correct. I'm seeing the same.
So Guy?
I have no question.
I don't really have any either. I mean, again, I think I agree with Robert as far as the pool goes. I mean, to me, that's sort of an incidental residential use activity. So I don't really have too much heartburn with that. Just looking to make sure that what needs to be done as far as reestablishing that landscaping gets done. But is that something, Shannon, that you guys in the office will oversee? Because I mean, did we get a plan for that? Because what I'm not sure of is trying to look, because I think the plan we were looking at that was done by Malone and McBroom, but that was back in 2007, 2008.
Correct. No, there isn't, because Mr. Rivera is going to work with the pool company. And I think what we're going to get is perhaps one comprehensive plan that shows all the work that he has envisioned. So rather than do mitigation work and then muck it up to get a pool in. So it'll be nice to get something that shows what he's envisioning for his backyard. And it will include the restoration items that Ian proposes. So we'll get a chance to look at something in totality. And then we can approve the restoration plantings, and then at that point make a determination on how we want to react to the pool and be able to move ahead.
I mean, to me, that sounds like a good approach. I mean, it's better to do everything at one time so that activities are coordinated. Doesn't make any sense to put landscaping in, then have somebody come in with equipment to put in a pool. You take down some of the landscaping that just got put in. So let's do it in a logical sequence. And that's my take on it. So.
Okay, perfect. I think that sounds good, and we'll continue to work with the homeowner and Mr. Cole and get a plan back before spring, before they want to get everything moving, so that they've got plenty of time to get a shovel in the ground.
Any idea when we might be looking at getting some plans in?
So I think what we're going to do, no offense to the pool company, but I think we're going to go a step further, because as I say, we really are committed to doing this the right way. And I think on Ian's advice, we are most likely going to engage an engineering firm to draw up a master site plan, which the pool company could drop their stuff into. And I think that's the smart thing to do. As you alluded to, Robert, I think that makes more sense, because I don't want to be before the commission 5 times on this. I'd rather you guys have more important work to deal with. So I'm in the process now of interviewing engineering firms. And so I should have one selected hopefully by end of week. And as soon as they can get out here, I think it's just a matter of coordinating them, the pool company, Ian, the landscape company, to sort of, get all our ducks in a row. And then as soon as we can, we'll work with Shannon to get the site plan back in front of you guys.
No, that sounds like a good plan. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I think that's it then for this one. Thank you, Adam, and thank you, Ian, for calling in, and we'll just continue to stay in touch with Bruce and/or myself. Even if it's an email update to say there is no update, that's okay. that's okay too, if you're still working on things, but just so that we know that dialogue continues is helpful.
Sure, we'll do. As we hit some milestones, we'll reach back out.
Okay, that sounds perfect. Thank you very much.
Have a good night. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night. Show cause hearing 1200 New Britain Avenue.
This is just a quick update. Really nothing more than what I put into the agenda review for all of you. Bruce Sear and I walked the property on December 23rd to review the property line conservation easement stakeout. The homeowner was able to coordinate and get that done. Obviously on December 23rd, we had a decent amount of snow cover, but the the stakeouts were there. We could see that it was accurate. The work that was being done is definitely now has all been, he moved the stockpiling out of the easement area, and his current work efforts are outside of the easement area. There's clear demarcation of where that line is. And we will continue to follow up with Mr. DiTomaso to make sure that we have a planting plan for review at either the February or no later than March meeting. So I'll be sending him a reminder email so that that gets done. But right now the site's stable and there's no, it's interesting because the back of his property actually has a knoll to it, and his work efforts are to one side of it and the easements to the other. So there is no runoff or material concerns entering into that wetland. And that's all I have.
Okay.
For that matter.
I mean, there's no action we have to take on this right now, is there?
Correct. No action with that one. Nope, it was just an update for you. So
Okay. All right. Thank you. 1179 Farmington Avenue.
Yes. So there's two items. If we could, I'd like to take care of the contract for our sub-consultant first. So all of you received the amendment. Obviously, this is continued, so there's additional items and additional review that is coming up and is necessary in order for Ed Pollock continue to review plans and the revised mitigation and restoration plan, and continue to work with both myself and George Logan. You all received the full proposal with the fees. For these purposes, I redacted the fees, and the full contract amendment was sent to the applicant and his attorney, so they have seen it as well. So unless there's a question or a concern, I wanted to put this forth, and if all are in agreement, then I will go ahead and get this executed on behalf of the commission so that we can continue services with Ed.
Do we need a motion on this one?
I don't know that we need a motion, but a general consensus would be helpful. If somebody's got a comment or question or concern.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just sort of, I guess, run through the list. Start with Guy.
I don't know.
Jay, did you send something up in chat?
I'm looking. Nothing, no comments or concerns.
Okay. Ned?
No, it looks fine to me.
Okay. Mark?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know why it all didn't work. No, go. I'm fine.
Okay. Robert?
Yeah, I'm supportive. I think the information we're getting from Ed Pollock, it's clear, concise, informative, so I support the extension of work services.
Thank you. Dave? Dave, he's muted.
Sorry again. I was agreeing with Robert. It's money well spent.
Okay, thank you.
But we didn't see you shaking your head. Emily? You're muted.
I am. Thank you so much. It's catching. It's catching. It's been a long meeting. No, I have nothing at this time. Thank you.
Okay, Rich?
I'm supportive of the amendment.
Yeah, I am as well, so.
Okay.
There.
I will get it executed. Okay, the other item, and I believe the property owner and his attorney, Mr. Gelsky, are you on the phone?
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
We sure can. How are
Okay.
you?
Happy New Year to the commission. We've executed the agreement already, so I'll arrange to get it to you, Shannon.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if you want the original or email, whatever you want. We'll do.
Email, that's fine. That'll do. Thank you.
Okay.
Emails.
I'm here with Mr. Mierzewski. You can't see him on screen, but we're a few feet apart. And the main purpose tonight, we'd like to ask the commission to lift the entire cease and desist order on the entire site to allow the crushing operation to resume that is on the westerly part of the site. And you've been out there a couple times. I think you've seen it and understand it. It's several hundred feet away from where the filling took place. The approximate area is off to the left of where the hand is right now. And what we would propose to do is to install a line of concrete blocks that are shown in red, running in a diagonal, as Shannon is outlining right now, that separates the east and west portion of the site, and would ask to get the crushing operation back. Oh, there we go. The crushing operation does employ a few men. It's important at this time of year because they can do work out there and not necessarily disturb people with noise, being in the winter time. Other businesses do rely on this site to have their waste material disposed of, and it is really part and parcel from where the activity took place that we're addressing right now. Staff is willing to go out and meet in the field to do an exact location of where the blocks would be planted. So that's our request from you. I think it is reasonable. We've cooperated, I think, very well with the commission. We've been on this for several months. And again, I would request and urge you to go ahead with that. Other cease and desist orders that have come down have not prohibited people from using their property other than, in the affected area. So that's essentially what we're asking as well.
And Attorney Gelsky, just for clarification, I know I had sent an email, and I believe I saw an email from Mr. Mierzewski prior to the meeting that he's agreeable to, yes, to working with us on site with getting the exact location of the barriers, but we're going to work to protect wetland B and work to allow access to these, and I don't even know that these two stockpiles are technically still here because this was a February aerial, but I think there is at least a stockpile that's in the near vicinity, but
you don't even need to use that one right now. Yeah, we can work around that. We don't need to be near that one at this point.
Okay, so we're just so the commission understands, it's not only are we not coming over here where wetland A is, the intent will be that those barriers are placed so that this wetland B has an opportunity to be investigated in the spring. And I had spoken to George and to Ed about that. I think it was yesterday morning now at this point that I spoke to both gentlemen. And so that would be the intent, is that the barriers are placed in a manner that, that area is protected and can still be appropriately investigated in the spring.
I just wanted to ask a question because I think I understand what was said, but I don't think we're really talking about lifting the cease and desist for the whole site.
No.
It's really for you to continue work in the existing sort of work area, correct?
That's
I think
correct.
Your comment originally was to lift the cease and desist for the whole site, and I don't think that's where we're headed. So what you're really asking for is permission to be able to use that portion of the site to do your crushing, storage of that material, things of that nature, correct?
Yes.
So that the area east of where you're proposing to put the concrete barrier, that would still be off limits for work unless it's associated somehow with restoration or mitigation or things of that nature, which is still, I think, sometime in the future.
Exactly. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, even if you wanted to, I'm sure we could even do an as-built of, you know, of where the blocks eventually go in, but it's going to be substantially in the area of, you know, as shown on the print.
Yeah, I mean, my take would be, at least my personal opinion would be that if it's okay with town staff, I don't necessarily need an A2 survey. I mean, I'm hoping that people would not be going in and sort of inching the blocks forward any, but once the blocks get down, they're in place, and as long as staff is on board with that, I think that would be fine. But that's sort of my take on it. But anyway, any comments? Like Rich, I'll start with you.
No, I'm fine with the concept.
Emily?
I am trying to come up with a precise comment, and I'm not quite there yet. So I may try to jump.
I can come back to you.
I might ask you to, but I'm not
Okay.
sure. I'll hit the raise hand button if I format it before it's.
It's easier if you just raise your hand. I can see you. So, okay. Dave?
No objections at this time.
Robert?
I'm fine with the concept. I would like to just have firm agreement on where the demarcation is going to be. So subject to town staff approval, but I would like to see the placement either pre-staked by an engineer or surveyed afterwards. And as you said, Mr. Chairman, you know, once the agreed upon location is made, then there has to be an assurance that that doesn't change, and that there's, you know, clear communication to the people that are going to be working at the site, what the barriers mean and why they really can't go beyond the barriers and take it upon themselves to do additional work. So I think subject to staff agreement, either having it pre-staked by an engineer or verified once the barriers are placed. And again, deferring to town staff on the details.
You know, we intended to be out there and stake it, and even to field verify it or be there as they're putting the barriers in. Because I think this is one of those we've got to be there to make sure, are we, you know, is at the end of the day, is Stanley okay coming in this direction, or does he need access to this material, and how are we getting them in here? So I intend to be on site to take a look at those, myself or Bruce.
Okay.
And have and we'll take photos. So we will, I think this is one of those that's got to be in person.
And that's fine, Shannon, as long as there's clear guidance and oversight by you and the other staff, then I'm fine with that. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Robert. Mark?
I'm okay with town staff making the determination where to put the blocks, and I'm okay with this allowing them to continue the work that they were doing previous to the violation.
Okay, Ned?
Yeah, I'm okay with the idea. I just had a question between the plan and the photograph. So you have the red dotted lines on the plan for an approximate location in concrete Jersey barriers, but then you have this red line on the photograph. That's not a continuation of Jersey barrier, is it?
No. That's, so I just use this so that we could have a visual, because again, the aerial photos are helpful for some things. And then this is great. This is helpful to know where we are with respect to wetland A. And I can see the edge of the pond here.
Yeah.
But wetland B wasn't formally flagged. But when I flip back here, I can see the edge of pond and I can come straight north and there's wetland B. And so I'm looking here and I come straight north and I'm like, yeah,
Okay.
That's why I'm like, this can't come straight down. It's gotta kick a little bit to the left.
Yeah.
So that's why that's there. This particular plan was one of George's exhibits. And I'm fairly certain, yeah, this was the Hall Road. So this red line is representative of what they believe the Hall Road from 2016 from the historic use of this site as an excavator. So that Hall Road has been there.
Yeah, that's what we're walking on the site
Correct.
visit a lot.
Basically,
Yeah,
you're right. Yeah, that's the road that we walk. So that's all that is for visual reference.
We'll just.
And have they continued the cleaning of the invasives? And I know.
I think they did for the mug. I think the mugwort, at least in this area, did.
Yeah. Okay.
And obviously, I think now for the winter, and we've had snow. Certainly, the foot of snow that we had mid-December would have knocked most of this down because it was a heavier, wet snow.
Right. Yeah, I'm okay with the town staff delineating the location of the Jersey barrier and then making record of it.
Okay. And we've got Jay in the chat, and Jay for this particular matter says I'm fine. And then Jay, just so I'm not ignoring your questions on the intervenor status. If it's okay, we'll come back to that at the end. I can't type information to you, listen to what's going on and drive the webinar and all the slides. So I'm sorry, but I'm not ignoring you. And I just figured we'd have a kind of a general chat at the end, and I'm more than happy to make sure that everybody's questions regarding the intervenor status is addressed prior to us signing off. So thank you, and thanks for your patience on that one. But yeah, I am a mother and I am a female, and we multitask really well, but even I have my limits.
Jay, fix your computer.
So okay. So Jay's good, and I think that Mr. Wolf, yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Emily, do you have any comments you want to make?
I mean, I always do, but about this particular moment, no, I think we actually hit it with I think it was Robert's comment or question earlier, kind of got towards where I was going. So I think we're all good. Thank you.
Okay, and I don't really have any comments on it either. I feel comfortable with staff going out there and working out the logistics as to where the concrete blocks need to go.
Okay, perfect. So what I will do is, so that we've got this documented, we'll get a revised, I'll revise the cease and desist simply only to the extent that it will allow the usual and customary work on this western portion of the property, and all other aspects of the cease and desist shall remain in effect for the rest of the property. And then I'll coordinate with Attorney Galsky and Mr. Mirzajewski to meet them out at the property and get this taken care of then. Okay, Attorney Galsky, do you folks have anything else this evening?
I don't, unless the commission has any questions from the prior hearing, Mr. Logan is going to continue to work on his plan, and we intend to present that at your next hearing and move forward. So other than that, thank you for your consideration tonight.
Yeah, I think I've spoken with everyone over the course, and I say everyone, Attorney Galsky, George Logan, and Ed Pollack, over the last 2 weeks. And so I think everyone's got some clear direction. George is going to advance the plan to somewhere to the 30 to 50% range. And once that's advanced, then we'll get it to Ed to take a look at, so that we can get everybody on the same page and be able to react to that. So, and I've chatted with Attorney Galsky, and I did with George Logan as well, to request that, these items need to be to me by the Friday before the meeting, so that they can be distributed to the commission, and you folks have the opportunity to review them prior to the meeting, not at the meeting.
Spring around the corner.
And then I did update the SharePoint site, so that information has been reorganized. And that information, the link and the reorganization, has been sent to all of you, so that you've got access to that and can look at all the documents that have been provided. So. Okay, anybody have anything else regarding this? No,
I'm good.
okay. Okay, all right, we'll call it good for this evening then. Thank you for calling in.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Okay.
Planners report.
I'm looking and I'm trying, I don't think I have anything else, but let me look to make sure I don't forget something. No, I'm clear. I think I'm clear here. So I don't have anything additional on planners report for you this evening.
Okay, minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes of December 2nd, 2020 special meeting?
So moved, Ned.
Is there a second?
Second, Mark.
Any comments, questions, corrections? No, hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? So be it. So we'll adjourn, and if I can find a clock somewhere, I guess 9:33. That sound about right?
Yes.
Yes.
And then we'll start the Conservation Commission meeting at 9:33, January 6th, 2021. Start with other business, Land Acquisition Committee report.
They meet next week, and we did some, we already talked. They met in
Did they
December.
meet that? They did meet in the December.
I did forward their comments.
We did meet last month.
Okay.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I don't think we did anything.
I think everything was executive session, if I recall.
Yeah.
And the next meeting is coming up next
week.
I don't think there's anything. And I'm trying to think, I don't have anything that is coming to mind. I don't have anything else, I don't think, from a conservation standpoint. I'm just pulling up, I've got Liz's meeting minutes here for December. There's correspondence from Richard Kramer dated December 2nd announcing his resignation from the Land Acquisition Committee. Steve Nelson is a Farmington Land Board member. Steve Nelson has been appointed to replace him. So Richard Kramer is retiring from Land Acquisition. Steve Nelson is coming on. And And then as far as any land discussions, there was no land discussions during open session. There was an executive session that lasted approximately 40 minutes. So that's all the report from land acquisitions. And I don't have any other matters at this time. We are working, obviously it's, you know, we're into the first of the year, so we're working on getting all of our household hazardous waste and shredding and all those dates in place. For Farmington, we're tracking April 24th, I believe, for the first event. So we got a little time for that one. And that's it.
So are masks required for that? Is that going to be part of the notice?
Probably, yes. Masks required and the whole 9 yards. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we had to cancel the one last spring, but we were able to hold the June and the summer and fall ones in Simsbury. But yeah, we should be able to get the one off this spring in Farmington. Now that we've got clear protocols in place.
Okay.
Okay.
Or maybe a bunch of people have vaccinations by then.
We can hope.
Yeah. Anything on planners report?
No, I don't have anything else to share from a conservation standpoint.
Okay, last thing on the agenda, can I get a motion to approve the minutes of the December 2nd, 2020 Conservation Commission meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
Second.
Ned. Oh,
Okay.
go ahead.
Second, Robert.
Any comments, questions, corrections? Hearing none. Those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstaining? Carries? Looks like about 9:37 to me to call it a night.